Want to hit a couple things here that Sean Highkin was talking about. The Portland Trailblazers taking on the Houston Rockets tonight. First of a back-to-back before they take on the Toronto Raptors. They play the Houston Rockets 3 times in the final 21 games. So a little bit of a weird scheduling quirk.
Someone didn't set that up, right? Well, I also wonder, though, if
That's way too much Dylan Brooks for me.
I also wonder if it was set up that way so it could be like, hey, these teams are going to be on a similar par. Let's have teams that we think are more likely to be in the playoffs go against each other so we can preview.
Who's going to suck the hardest?
Right, and have them make sure they're on local TV, not national.
What was the very racist South Park sketch, Who Poop Last? Do you remember that one?
I do not.
Who Poop Last? I think this is who sucks least,
or who sucks most.
Yes, but it was a spinoff of the Japanese game shows.
Gotcha.
And it was I think there might be a little bit of that here because again the Rockets were a team they were higher draft picks and yes they added some veteran players and Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, but they still suck. They suck just slightly less than the Blazers. That's kind of where they are. The interesting thing I think about what the Blazers have right now is, and I've heard this from fans over the last couple of weeks, you don't have to squint to see what they want to try to do going forward. Now, they have a very long way to go, but I'll ask you because you're more of a casual Blazers fan.
Right.
When you look at this team right now, number one, do you care any more, any less? Or number two, the one thing I think that the Fires were stoked when they were losing by 60, do you believe in less or more of Chauncey Billups or the same than you did going into the season?
Honestly, everything for me has stayed the same. Like I'm a casual Blazer fan. That is true. Growing up, my family was we're a big hockey family. Uncle and dad played and were pretty good, for high school players. So that's always kind of where I've leaned. And I fell in love with the Blazers when B. Roy was there. I was a big fan of B. Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge. So I've always paid attention. I'll watch games. Usually there's another game that's on or I'm doing something else while the game's on. I'll go to a couple games a year. With this team, when you go into a rebuild, if you thought this season was going to be anything other than that, you're dumb. You were not paying attention. You were not listening to the right people, and you were foolish. You were gullible. And that's fine. So when I went into this year, the whole thing for me was always, where is the growth of Shaden? Where's the growth of Scoot? It's going to be rough. You're going to have games where you have a bunch of turnovers. You're going to have games where you have a bunch of missed shots. But does it get better as the season goes on? And I also don't feel at times it's fair to judge Chauncey on everything. When he came in, he took this job thinking that he was going to have a team that was going to go all in and try and make a run with Dame at the end of his career. That's what he took the job. That's what he was expecting. That's what he was hired for. And it has now turned into, you are going to be the coach that helps lead this rebuild. If you do well enough, you're going to stay and you're going to be on, and this will be your team that you've helped create with the GM, Joe Cronin, and the rest of the front office. Or if you're not the correct guy for the job, we'll move on and go somewhere else. But he wasn't hired to be the rebuild coach and build everything a certain way. He was hired to be the last Dame push. He was going to help that. So in my eyes, the coaching hasn't changed to me. He's trying to figure it out just the same way that the young players are trying to figure it out.
On that line, Jeff, you've been anti-Billups.
Yes.
So
right.
where do you
apologetically, and I won't
Yes.
back away from it. Look, even from Jump Street, I didn't think he was the right hire because at that point it was they'd let go of Stotts and they felt that the team needed a lift to try to turn that corner. So for me, it was multiple reasons, not just basketball.
Sure.
It was off the court stuff too. Right.
Fair.
And I've made that very clear about his past and whatnot. But even just for basketball reasons, I don't understand why you bring in a guy to try to turn the corner of a team that had, I guess success is a loose word.
No, I mean,
but trying to turn the corner into a more successful team.
They made a Western Conference Finals. I think you can say it was a successful team.
I had a hard time getting behind the reasoning of hiring a guy with exactly one season of experience on a bench right out of the TV booth to be that guy to help you turn the corner.
Sure.
Fair.
And so then once we realized that personnel wise on the court with the players, they realized, okay, it's time to move on from Dame. I still don't understand why that guy is the one to help groom the young guys and turn them into NBA players. It's one thing if he is, like a lead assistant on the bench. Great. That's fantastic. Have that be, piece number 2 in grooming these guys and getting this team ready to go. But so, the unfortunate thing is this year 3, 4?
You're
Three?
gonna.
Three,
That's the thing. People are gonna say year 3, but they view it as year 1.
But
Right.
I'm not even talking the rebuild. I'm talking of Chauncey's tenure
Chauncey,
here.
Yeah, 2021.
And it seems like we still just kind of keep kicking the can down the road, and we still don't know.
Do you think that what he has done with the young guys has anything about that been like, okay, I think there is something there with him?
I mean, look, it's tough because with what we've got now, Scoot being on and off the court, being hurt, and Ant being on and off the court, and Shaden and all these guys, and then bring in
Grant,
right, exactly, and then outside of that, you got a bunch of spare parts, right, and you're using a used catalytic converter, and so we still don't know. And yes, he's getting like. Admittedly, Duop Reith is a fantastic surprise. Toumani Camara, fantastic surprise.
Right.
But we don't know if that's on Chauncey, if that's on scouting. We just still don't know.
On that part of things, it's why I have been so adamant about coaching. Not that it's unimportant, just that the level that it is stressed to in the NBA, particularly among fans, is not there. In the NFL, it's there. It's unquestioned. You have your fingerprints over everything. Shaping, molding, designing, calling. It's very...
Which is why Nathaniel Hackett gets canned in season 1.
Exactly. And that's why you see great coaches continually be great, regardless really of where they go to.
Mm-hmm. And so, but like in Milwaukee, they realized pretty quickly that Adrian Griffin...
And it has less to do with...
He was not it.
You have to bungle it, and that's what he was doing.
And maybe he has a great rapport with the guys, and that's fantastic. And I'm not going to say that's not a huge part of the equation because it is, but you can't just have it be he's only still there because the players love him.
No, it can't be. And that's the thing is and that's what I wonder is at this point in time, like how people tend to view it. I'm around it all the time,
right?
Which is why I always tell when Terry was here, I'm like, guys.
He's a good coach.
He's a good coach. Like,
you're doing well.
They're doing and the thing people think I dismiss for what I'm saying with a lot of this is they're like, because I'm saying that, they think that I'm not saying that there's something wrong. It's just that the lesser things, like no coach is perfect.
Right.
Spoelstra is not perfect. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
The best tactician in basketball. I will not disagree. But I also think that stuff doesn't matter nearly as much until you get to the upper levels. That's just the reality of it. Like it's the 5 or 10% difference, which wins you titles. When all other things are equal,
right?
That's when you could. That's when that stuff starts to really show.
Well, because look at the last couple of years in San Antonio. I mean, they've got arguably the greatest coach of all time, and they've been dog crap.
They've gotten
for
a living
handful of years.
crap kicked out of them in a way that you're just like.
But they're okay with that because they know what Pop is, and they know what kind of a coach he is, and how he can coach guys
at the top end. Yes, and that is the question as it pertains to Chauncey.
Yeah,
you have no idea,
and we still
what
don't.
He is in that, and that's where the thing is. For everybody who has said like they need to get him out of there, they need to make that change. I don't think they're going to because of the other stuff that's more important right now, and that is the development. Of
and I think also part of it is though too is that with the it's just a lot of it at the very top of the organization and ownership.
Sure,
it still feels like a somewhat of a rudderless ship, right? Paul got sick and died, and they waited. They waited entirely way too long, seasons too long to get Neil Olshey the hell out of town.
Yeah,
they let him. The last 5, 6, 7 years, that's all on him. How this team has been dog crap. It's all on Neil Olshey, and they let him stick around too long, and he poisoned the franchise.
Yeah,
and they let him hire the guy, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, looks like Neil maybe, helped foster a
Toxic
an unhealthy
workplace.
workplace.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get rid of him now after we just let him hire the new head coach.
Right.
I mean, anyway, I don't.
No.
I'm going to get off my soapbox.
No, you're not wrong.
The other question that I had though too, like so because Rust is voicing an opinion of a lot of Blazer fans. I know that I'm kind of in the minority because I like to look at things glass half full. But if let's say in a hypothetical you do move on from Chauncey, is there a coach that you can outright say no matter what you can get him to Portland and he is going to be known as the youth upgrader or he is like so talented or he brings in a staff that's so talented that will push these guys to the next level?
You take a look at Portland's coaching hires throughout the history of the franchise's existence. All of them were retreads. All of them were early opportunities or late opportunities. All of them. Portland has never been a place that coaches come to.
Players either.
Yes, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's out here. It's not the hotbed of the NBA.
Well, no, I guess when we say all of them, how far back are we going?
All of them, even Dr. Jack.
He was Buffalo before the Blazers. Okay, well, so this
Adelman.
that wasn't his first head coaching job.
Retread. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Schuler even.
Oh, sure. Oh, God.
I mean, I know Dunleavy, yes, but
Terry had a terrible head coaching record.
oh, I know, yeah, Milwaukee and Atlanta. I know. I remember when I was my old days bartending at Old Chicago, I worked with his cousin. Terry Stotts' cousin was another bartender at the Old Chicago.
Let's see,
His
Lenny.
name was Bruce.
Oh,
Bruce Beppel. He was a hell of a dude. I love that guy.
Let's see.
guy.
I'm trying to think if Lenny had. I want to say.
Well, Lenny Wilkins, he was a player coach, right?
Yeah,
Was that after he? No, that was
So does
before
that
he coached
even-
Seattle.
but no, it was after.
Was it after Seattle?
After Seattle, he spent 4 years in Seattle.
So they literally are all retreads except for Chauncey.
I'm going through all of them right quick because
And also, I think there's a difference between a retread and somebody with experience.
Right. Well, and like
You
they
know?
brought in like Terry had experience and he learned what not to do.
Right.
And then what he brought in was what the Blazers needed in
Yeah.
that moment.
And,
like I remember when Nate McMillan was a great coach and he was what the
Yes.
Blazers needed when they had
Also,
B-Roy.
another not a first time one.
Right.
but
right.
also they had a mutiny against Nate McMillan.
At the very end.
Well,
right.
well, I mean
And
that's
also 'cause
typically
Raymond-
how mutinies end. Will
But that's also
Yes, that's
not always. I saw Pirates of the
yeah.
Caribbean.
There's not typically a mutiny and then the guy hangs on.
But he did well until B-Roy was out and they got fat Raymond Felton in, who I still hate.
Yeah,
Let's
Captain
see.
Cupcake.
As a coach,
Now we're going to play hard.
So-
After you got your coach fired, you're a piece of garbage.
he was a head college coach at VMI and Rice. Schuler was,
Okay.
and he had 4 assistant jobs before
Okay.
getting 5 assistant jobs before getting the Blazers job, which lasted for 3 years.
Mhm.
So let's see, Adelman. Like I said, I'm almost certain that Adelman was, yeah. Oh no, he was a head coach at Chemeketa first. That's what it was.
At Chemeketa.
Schmeketa?
Yes,
I knew-
the vaunted Chemeketa Community
Yes.
College.
And then he was the Trailblazers
Chemeketa.
assistant for 6 years before getting promoted.
Okay, yeah. So he was
So-
so he was an internal hire.
Yes, internal hire. So
Yes.
again, not bringing somebody in. So PJ was external,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm almost certain.
And he came directly from Seton Hall. Is that right?
The great Seton
yes,
Yeah.
Seton Hall. But he had been a head coach for 14 years.
Mhm.
No, 20 years
At the
yeah.
collegiate level.
Yeah.
Yes.
So long time.
Right.
There. So there's your first actual, and well, we know how that ended. Dunleavy ended up getting Coach of the Year in 2000.
He did have himself a hell
he
of a
had
roster.
he also had been a head coach with the Lakers and the Bucks.
Yes.
And then who does that leave?
So-
Did Cheeks
Did he coach at New York? No.
Was he in Philadelphia?
Ooh, that might be
assistant? He was assistant
Just
with
an assistant?
Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
But was that his
Willow's
first head
ball.
job?
And then he went to Philadelphia after the Trailblazers.
Okay.
Yes.
Will knows
So,
ball.
and he was assistant with the Sixers for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then obviously Kevin Pritchard stepped in.
Yes.
Then
He was a
Nate,
co- I
Well,
forgot
and that was
about him
an
being a coach.
interim basis.
yeah, he stepped in after they fired Cheeks.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Then Nate,
Good old Caleb Canales.
KK
Yeah.
stepped in an interim, and then Terry, and now Chauncey. So yeah, they don't go get illustrious coaches.
Right.
They can't.
But that's kind of what I'm saying.
Right,
like,
right.
So to answer your question about going out and getting somebody.
Well, see, but I don't think it's that they can't, because getting a coach here is not like trying to lure a top free agent player.
But here's the other thing. Because the top free agents aren't here or the top players aren't here consistently,
Mm-hmm.
the coaches don't want, like, everybody talks about there's only so many of these jobs. There's only 30 of them in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It still matters because you don't want to get, I mean,
It's
even
not
Chauncey. Chauncey didn't want to come here and be Brett
Right.
Brown.
Well, so it's like
he didn't
what's-
want to come here and stack up losses on his
Right.
coaching
Well,
record.
That's what makes it all the more maddening. Like when years back, they had a chance where they could have gotten Rick Carlisle, and from what it sounds like, Carlisle wanted to come here.
Yes.
Right.
Why the f didn't they do that?
Yeah. It's just my point being, if they're going to make that change, number one, you're never guaranteed a success. There might be,
Right.
Right. It could be
Joe
even
Mazzulla
worse.
was like a guy who's like, oh, he's a young assistant who maybe was going to put it together. And then Ime's out,
Yeah.
and Will Hardy's already gone.
Mm-hmm. And
Will Hardy was the guy that everybody was like, I can see him being
Right.
pretty good, but he goes to Utah and now Missoula, and he struggled.
and Stevens wasn't going to come back in. So like,
No.
yeah, it's
But even then, Missoula was successful.
because of the
Because
team
the
around
roster,
him,
and
and
that's-
then he's figured it out. And having the town be your favorite show helps too with that mentality.
Sure.
Wenger,
But again, like
who's
the whole,
Cowie taken?
if they're going to make a change, the idea that they can guarantee we can go back to the last coaching change. Remember, if they just get rid of Terry Stotts, that's the thing that's holding them back, which I yelled at everyone and everyone got mad at me for.
Mhm.
No, Terry
it
Stotts was
wasn't
not
Terry
the thing
Stotts.
holding
Yeah.
them back.
No.
In fact, it was a product of the roster.
Yeah. Oh, wait. You mean the roster construction was the problem?
That's proprietary, Rust.
I was led to believe otherwise.
That's proprietary, Rust.
It's just, yeah, it is what it is.